Hey, what's up? It's Emilio DiSpirito, and this is the Wealth Architect Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you each and every single week. My team and I have hand-selected our guests to come on the program to talk about how to build wealth financially, mentally, physically, spiritually, right? There's so much that goes into building a lifestyle full of wealth, and we hope that this content really reaches you, not only in your brain, but in your heart, and that you could do something with this. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and we're going to have a great show. Hey, a special thank you to our sponsor, Annie Mac Home Mortgage, whose Cash to Keys product is disrupting the industry. Sick and tired of finding the perfect home, not having your offer selected? I got to tell you, it happens all the time. With Cash to Keys, Annie Mac gives sellers a cash guarantee for each of their buyers' offers. Stop bidding and hoping. Instead, bid with Annie Mac and bid with confidence. Don't just bid, but win. Annie Mac Mortgage. If you're listening to this podcast, you either own or will own a home, a car, and need life insurance. That's why you should check out our friends over at LaPointe Insurance, LaPointeINS.com. These guys are the best in the business. They can help you if you're in Rhode Island or Massachusetts. And let me tell you something, his dedicated team of professionals are there to assist you and meet you where you're at. You never feel like you're being sold. You felt like you're being helped. It's a family tradition over at LaPointe. Check them out, LaPointe Insurance. Welcome to The Wealth Architect. This is Season 2, Episode 5. I'm Emilio DiSpirito. I'm excited to be here with you today. We've got a great guest lineup. We're going to talk about syndications. We're going to talk about property management. We're going to talk about how to create businesses and create wealth. And we've brought on some really great people to mastermind with here on The Wealth Architect. So I'd like to introduce Josh Hennessy of the Hennessy Group. Not only was Josh a former NHL player, professional hockey here in the United States, as well as in Europe and Canada. He's just a rock star in the property management game, managing over 6,000 doors, also getting into syndication. So there's going to be a lot to unpack here, and I'm excited to introduce you to Josh Hennessy. Josh, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me.
You're welcome, man. I hope that introduction did you well, because you've got quite the resume, and you are constantly just getting involved in more and more larger and larger projects. So
yeah, and that was a nice introduction. Thank you. It feels very flattering because sometimes you're not sure that you know what you're doing, but I think that was all true.
Well, you're humble too, and it's funny because like right before this started, I asked you, I was like, "Wow, you played for the Bruins, right?" I'm not a sports guy, I don't know much, and you were like, "Yeah, for a short time," and I was like, "Well, why?" And I was laughing at what you said. You were like, "I was no good," which I doubt because you can't make it there.
Yeah, I mean, it was relative. Playing a little bit for the Bruins was a dream come true. I grew up in the Boston area.
Yeah.
So it is something I'm very proud of. But you know, when you get that close, you always want more. Mm-hmm. So it's that's kind of my default joke is that it was very brief. But I was lucky to play pro hockey for a long time. It actually kind of provided my start in real estate just because I had a couple bucks when I was younger. So and I like what I'm doing now just as much, to be honest with you.
There's so many takeaways from like sports and business and working on a team. And before we segue into all the business things, I think it's important to talk about how, maybe playing in the NHL or playing professional hockey for so many years, like how did that kind of reshape your thinking going into business?
I think being comfortable in a competitive environment certainly helps. Competing, pretty seriously at something since I was a little kid. And then I think real estate is competitive, especially in more challenging markets. And then starting a property management company where we're providing a service business, obviously you have to have a leg up on the competition somehow. Mm-hmm. So being comfortable with that was helpful. And then I think being able to react well to adversity because it feels constant. I'm sure we all get it.
Yeah.
So you get hardened over time and you get unbothered. I mean, I've been traded, cut, sent down, into the minors in pro hockey, and there are things that hurt and they're setbacks, and then you learn how to dust yourself off. So, and I think that's uber important in the business world too.
Talk about a disappointment. I mean, if you're like, your whole life you're dreaming of hitting the big leagues, you hit the big leagues, and then they're like, nope, cross check, you got to get down. Kicking the nuts, like there you go, get down there. When they dropped you to the minors, were you able to get back up?
Yeah. So the term cup of coffee. I had several cups of coffee. So there was about a 6-year run where I was a very good American Hockey League player, which is like the Providence Bruins level, borderline NHL. So I would get called up if somebody got hurt on the NHL team, and you kind of fill in spot duty. You hope that becomes full time at some point. You get a long-term contract. That was not the case for me, but I played for 13 years. It was my job. It was really the only job I ever had until real estate. So
that's amazing.
So I feel very, very blessed to have done what I did in hockey, and I'll never stop joking about how short my NHL career was, but it's still something I'm proud of for sure.
Yeah, you should be proud of that. I think that's really amazing. I've heard nothing but great things about you, and I can see that they're all true. Being humble in business is I think it's so important, right? Because there's so many times where we're being kicked down, knocked down a notch, and we not only have to pick ourselves up, but we have to pick everybody else around us up too as leaders. And you have quite the crew.
Yeah. Like probably something else that pro sports prepared me for to an extent is kind of being a good teammate or trying to be a leader of a team. Where if I panic, that could spread pretty easily.
True,
yeah. So keeping your composure and finding a way out, of whatever the problem is.
That's right. It's like always when we're talking with clients or advisors, like in stressful situations, they're going to mimic our tone. Everybody is usually, if you're handling a problem, you have to be that calm in the storm. And I am sure with 6,000 doors and putting syndications together and having a staff of, I think you said 40 people, Josh, I'm sure that there's a daily storm that comes to you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very few days go by where something doesn't happen that I would have preferred had not happened.
Yeah.
But like I said, you get conditioned to it, and you come to expect challenges, and over time, your knowledge and experience grows, and you start to encounter things that you've encountered in the past, and you say, I remember what I did there, and some of it becomes automatic. And we have, I have great partners and a great team to lean on. And I'm confident that if I don't know the answer, which happens frequently, that I know somebody who can help me. So
yeah, that's everything. Having the right network too. And I mean, growing to, 6,000 doors is not easy. How many years have you been doing this?
The management company was established in 2017, which was actually my last year playing pro hockey. So my partner, Emily, who I know you had on.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's a rock star. She's the best at what she does, and specifically property management. She was doing that as a mother of four. We had our own portfolio, and I was focused on hockey. We were buying real estate, we were saving up enough to buy another property pretty much after every hockey season for a long time. And then she kind of cut her teeth by doing everything that has to be done in terms of property management. So she likes to say now that of our 40 some odd people, there's really not a job that somebody's doing in the building that she did not do at some level for some period of time.
Respect.
Yeah. So that's cool. So 2017 was the management company, but we bought our first multifamily house when we were 23 years old.
Wow.
So that was 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, which was an interesting time to be buying your first property.
Yeah.
So
the market was sliding.
So right out of the gate, we got hurt in that respect, at least in terms of value.
Yeah.
So we bought a 2-family and rented out the downstairs to our cousin and kept one unit for ourselves, and just didn't really know what we were doing at the time, other than it seemed like a simple equation where that was going to be a better solution to having our own place to stay in the summer. The market fell, and what money we had, we put most of it down on that 2-family, and the rest of it was in the stock market and appeared to be disappearing. So that kind of nudged us in the direction of, let's figure out this real estate thing.
So you started gobbling up properties when they were priced pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know it at the time, really. I mean, the first 3 we bought was just, this 2-family works, and there were 2 more that came up down the street, and I had a decent year, in hockey. So we bought, the next time was 2 families in the same neighborhood, and then it went to 3s and 5s and 10s, and then the market we kind of rode the wave, and were able to refinance and get into some 1031 exchanges, and then
those are great,
and then partnership deals. So it's probably not a completely unique story in that, we started with 1 2-family and then got comfortable with it, and then you get comfortable with a few more, and then you build a team and learn to rely on other people. I mean, we got to a point where Emily couldn't do everything, and I wasn't much help beyond, I like the deals, so I like finding the properties and negotiating them and getting the financing and kind of bringing everything to the closing. Beyond that, I'm pretty useless. So that you just get to a point when you're going to scale that you need help. So I guess fast forward 17, coming up on 18 years, we've been doing it.
Wow, that's great. You got quite the experience. They say it takes about 5 years of doing something full time to be an expert in it, and you've got more than triple that.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of power in your story, okay? Because if I'm listening to a podcast like this and I'm like, I don't have any properties, or I got a 2-family property. Like, what can I do? Just knowing that there's people that we know either directly or indirectly that have been able to go out and start from humble beginnings, right? Go buy a 2-family because of affordability reasons.
Yeah.
And that lines up well with what's happening in the market right now. I mean, I think it's a powerful story, Josh. I appreciate your story. And this is why you're here. And to turn it into an empire that you and Emily have built is unbelievable. I mean, you're the only guest that I've had on from the same company twice, right?
Okay,
Like
cool.
there's a reason for that. So I appreciate how you come at stuff and how you think of stuff, because I myself, I'm always downplaying what I'm doing, but what you're doing is not something to downplay. I mean, I give you a ton of credit, bro. I really do. So we were talking about the humble beginnings, and you purchased a large property management company. What did that do? Did that double down your doors? Did that triple your doors?
About 3 years ago, we bought RIPAC, which was at the time the largest condominium manager in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So overnight combined, and then while we were under agreement to purchase RIPAC, the opportunity to purchase Harmony, which was another reputable management company that was a little bit smaller but had been around for 30 years, came up. So we actually purchased both at essentially the same time. So overnight, we went from being private mom and pop landlord, kind of organically growing a management footprint with a small book of clients. I mean, it was, one 3-family at a time, one landlord at a time that has a 3-family, and we got to a certain point, but we only managed, I want to say, about 16 associations prior to purchasing those companies. It gave us essentially the infrastructure because they had good teams in place, and we were able to keep a lot of those people. And it gave us a market presence that had gravity. So leads and clients started to kind of show up on our doorstep versus us really pounding the pavement at the beginning. And again, had the capacity at that point to service way more clients.
So, and without doing those essential steps and building out a business, building out a model that you can ultimately grow, that has a foundation, you as a business owner are not ready to be scaling and taking on more stuff. And I think that's so important. And so many people want to skip that and just bite off more than they can chew. And at some point you got to take the risk, and you got to say, all right, we're ready to double down. And that takes kahunas. It does, but you've done it. How do you find these deals, right? Like, how do you find a company like RIPAC to go in and just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to purchase the largest property? Like, how do you do that, Josh?
I talk a lot to everybody. I want to say I was playing golf years ago. Someone said, what do you do? I said, I'm in the property management business. He said, oh, my friend who's a member here also was in the property management business, and he was getting a little bit older. I don't think his kids would be interested. Maybe you should talk to him. And this was literally within the first 30 seconds of the conversation of my saying,
powerful.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe you should talk to him. So that was years before it actually came to fruition. And I had mentioned it to Emily at the time, and to her credit, she was the one that was insistent on following up periodically, and she got him finally about 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years later. Yeah. We just kept reaching out to John Morgan, who was the owner, and I think when he was ready to sell, he had a few interested parties, but we by that time were more familiar with what RIPAC was, and how that might be a good fit for us, and how we were ready. Like you mentioned, being ready. I don't know that we were ready that first time I had that conversation on the golf course. Ready to be responsible for that many people, and that many trucks, and that many doors. And then there's a little negotiation that happens, and then so you do that. So when you take action, I think like I said, you start to have some critical mass and gravity that attracts better things to you. So then my accountant, we were talking to our accountant about how do we finance this, which I can get to in a second. It's an interesting part of the story. But he said, actually, we have a client for another management company that has mentioned selling. So then that lead just right away came from our CPA. Yeah. So it was, a couple meetings with them, and we said, and so we kind of wrapped it up into what became, at least from our perspective, one transaction, because from a financing perspective, it was all happening at the same time.
Wow. You can rope two companies into one
Well,
transaction?
so they were separate transactions, but in terms of how are we going to pull this off?
Got it.
We were looking at it as kind of one lump sum.
Got it,
Where is
yeah.
this coming from? And it came from different sources. So we got a bank, a loan from the bank, and then we got a secondary lender because the bank was only comfortable to a certain point, and then we had to obviously put in our own equity, which came from refinancing two properties that we had had for a long time, and luckily had enough equity that we could pull out as essentially what it was our down payment on the two businesses. And we just did it. I mean, you get nervous,
Wow.
but I was lucky, that Emily had at least as much tolerance for risk as I do. So I was very lucky in that respect.
You got to have a high risk of tolerance to be growing a business, to be, buying properties, to be just constantly adding to it. Because how many times have people looked at you and said, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
Often?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good feeling. I like when people ask me,
Yeah.
I am crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like we are.
Yeah. It was a lot of jokes when I started partnering, to buy real estate and bringing in investors and such. And a lot of them have become either started as, and still are, or become close friends of mine. You're looking for people with money. A lot of times that's some people older than you are when you're getting going, with some wisdom. And, it's guys that kind of grew up in the Rhode Island market in a time when, apartments in Pawtucket were selling for $25,000 a door. And they're saying, "You're insane paying this." And then 5 years later,
It's relative.
I wasn't, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to be able to tune that out and believe in yourself too, because if you zoom the lens out far enough on a chart, real estate goes up.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually.
So you got to trust your ability to hang on.
You learn from those mistakes. And I feel like the mistakes that I've learned from over the years, personally, professionally, physically, everything, whatever it was, has shaped me. It shapes you, it shapes us and who we are. And I feel like we're in a society where, people want to hide all their mistakes. They want to look perfect, and it's like, we don't need to look perfect. People want, they want the raw, the real.
Yeah.
We're hungry for it, I
Yeah.
think, as a society.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the kind of tactic for us in our sales pitch when we're trying to grow the management book is, it's still possible that we don't know the answer to your problem of your condo association or your apartment building, off the top of our heads, but we figure stuff out.
You have the resources, the network to be able to find it out.
Right. And we'll figure it out.
Every situation is unique. If it involves people, it's a unique situation. It's a unique problem, right? Usually. I got a question for you regarding putting these deals together, right? So when you're going to purchase a business, right? Oftentimes, if it's a reputable business, if it's a long-standing business, there's probably other buyers in the place. And I think you said when you were going to buy the largest property management company in the state at that time, there were probably 3 other buyers, it sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, we signed NDAs, but I know of 2 interested parties that we had run into. So.
All right. So would you say when you're doing that, in that aspect, you're probably, the seller doesn't always go with the highest offer. The seller, would you agree that they go with whoever has the best relationship with them? Do you feel that that's important, like establishing that relationship, that rapport?
It's huge. I mean, I know for a fact that we were not the highest offer for that particular company. Proving to the seller, a lot of times it's somebody who's dedicated a huge portion of their life to building a business and building a team, that he feels responsible for his employees. And, there's, if you've run a nice company, there's some level of family, feeling, you would say, especially with key people. So making a seller feel confident that he's leaving his people in good hands, I would say, it has a ton of monetary value. In other words, you might pay less because this person feels better about his legacy. And I think that was the case. And we were conscious of that. And we've really tried to honor our word in that respect by, keeping key people and taking care of them and creating an environment where people want to stay and work long term.
Wow, there's a lot of wisdom in that statement that Josh just said. And it's true. It's when a lot of people, especially that have built large, reputable businesses and a name, they want to leave a legacy and they want to make sure that their people are in good hands, and they don't want a company to come in and just lay everybody off. And that often happens with acquisitions or mergers, right? And the fact that you went in and you've kept, how many of those employees out of the 40 did you, or not 40, but did you
So
keep?
I would say that 90% are still with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Obviously there's some level of, people are transient.
Redundancy
Right.
yeah.
And inefficiencies.
Or not a fit.
And it might not be a fit. And we're on a wealth podcast. You have to be profitable. So
Of course.
right. So sometimes you identify inefficiencies and you think there's things we could do better or that somebody else might be able to do better. But we looked at everybody individually. We got what we thought was a healthy sample size before deciding if it was a long-term fit. And again, we may have made some mistakes in that journey too, but we're proud that we've kept most of the people that wanted to be there are still with us.
It's pretty amazing. I can see you guys. I see the trajectory. I know it's going to continue. Are you looking to keep it just in Rhode Island, or, and I don't mean just in Rhode Island because what you're doing is massive, but are you looking to extend like regional, national, or you want to keep it here?
Not today, potentially someday. I would say that my focus in this very moment is acquiring more real estate. I think that we've gotten very comfortable with where we are and kind of strengthening the foundation of the management company so that we can keep adding clients. I do see a natural progression someday into Massachusetts and Connecticut. Whether we want to go beyond that and be a national brand is probably something further down the road. We have 4 kids, not in college yet.
Yeah.
A lot of them still need rides.
They play hockey.
Right. So it's an energy question at this point. So ask me again in 5 years, I guess.
I will. I'm going to have you back in 5 years to ask you. You're welcome. Let's talk about syndications. Now, syndications are a huge buzzword, especially in the wealth creation area. And it's not something I know a ton about. But I do know several people that are involved with it or are becoming involved with it. And I know even more people that have questions about it, right? So can you, you've done syndications. I think you said several at this point. Can you tell us a little bit about, first off, what exactly is a syndication? And then I'm going to dig down from there and ask you some questions.
It's essentially pooling money from investors to buy income producing real estate.
Okay.
And there are several different legal ways to structure it. In general, it's pooling investor money to buy an asset, and those investors obviously expect to make a return on their money. So I look at the deals in the same way I would in purchasing a property just for our private portfolio. And then you look at how much you need for the down payment, closing costs, and maybe some CapEx or some out of the gate operating capital. In our case, we put a certain, we commit upfront a certain amount of money to the deal. We always invest our own money alongside our partners, and then we go get the rest. So we put together, some materials, a pro forma, I'd call it a flyer, and circulate it to people I think might be interested. And then
can I get on that list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll add you this afternoon. And you garner interest at first, at the beginning, and then a lot of times you get a verbal commitment that is nice, but you can't necessarily count on. So then the next step is to formally have them sign what we call subscription documents, which would have the partnership agreement, so people know exactly what they're getting into and what they're buying. And
what the risk is.
Yeah, so it's a lot of disclaimers saying that and typically you need accredited investors, which there's a few different ways to qualify, but it's essentially a verification that this person understands and could withstand the loss of the entire investment. So that's a big thing. So we try to put that in bold, meaning it's buyer beware.
Yeah.
This entails risk. I like to say I don't think it's risky because I think I'm good at it.
Yeah.
But there are there are a lot of market factors that'll never be near our control. So
You wouldn't be putting your name on it if you
Right.
thought it was a bad thing. But of course, like, there's global scales of
Right.
things that we can't control.
Right. And then the benefit, I guess, to the investors and part of my pitch when meeting with investors is that it is all of the same benefits as owning rental property on your own without any of the headaches.
No headaches.
And that's really what it boils down to.
So with syndications, with the ones that you have done, right, what has been the lowest rate of return, and then which one has been the highest rate of return? And I mean, when you're going into these things, you can kind of guess, but you really don't know how they're going to pan out. But like, what are those rates? Like, is a low rate of return like 6%? There's a high rate like 10%. Like, can you kind of walk us through that?
So as you know, you make money in a few different ways in real estate, but the one that people usually grab onto when you are trying to raise money is their cash on cash return. In other words, they expect a distribution, actual money. I do it quarterly. And that typically it has to be attractive versus other investment vehicles. So I think 7% annually cash on cash is a great return. Some people might say, well, I make more than 7% in the stock market. Well, you have to think of the distribution or the cash on cash portion as the dividend of a stock, right? So your principal is essentially you still have the equity in the property, which is going up in value. The tenants are essentially making your loan payments for you. So the principal of your loan is going down. So your net worth is going up in that respect, or your equity is going up in that respect. So that's it's one metric, but it is the one that people latch onto. So I really won't advertise I won't try to do a syndication if I don't believe it can achieve over 7% annually.
Got it.
And that might be 5% in the first year because we need to do some work. Or I might say I don't plan on making distributions for the first 6 months because we need to get our feet, we need to kind of wrap our arms around this and maybe it was poorly managed. Maybe there's a bunch of units that are offline and need to be fixed up. But over the lifetime of the investment, so say if you're advertising, I expect to hold this for 5 to 7 years, I would expect the annual cash on cash return to average X. So I think 7% is kind of is a number that gets people's attention. And then you have to dig in more and say your total return is going to be much higher than that, which so far so good.
How long do you have to hold, your stake or your shares? I'm not sure in a syndication.
So they're not liquid. So that's a big part of the disclaimer. So it is not easy to get out earlier than what was advertised. So in other words, if I say, guys, you have to expect this money to be out for 5 to 7 years.
That's not that bad.
No. But I mean,
thought you were gonna say
people
10.
could say 2 to 3. Some people might say 10. So if you were typically, there are mechanisms for people to sell their shares, but typically the general partner of the syndication, in this case, me, has first right of refusal. So if you were an investor and something happened, you wanted money, you weren't happy, you said, what are my shares worth, or what do I think they're worth? And if you were happy with that, and I was happy with the price, I might write you a check for your shares, and that would increase my ownership. If typically, then after that, it would go to the rest of the investor group or the limited partners, and they would have the opportunity to buy those shares also. So it's kind of a slow, very illiquid process. So it's really important that if you're getting involved in a syndication, that you understand the horizon, certainly the track record of the usually called the sponsor or the syndicator. But the horizon's a great question to ask.
All right. So the horizon, right? So when that time ends, does that property get sold, or do you have the opportunity to buy back in for another set period of time? What happens there?
Typically, you're looking for a cash event, so either a sale or refinance. A lot of times, the best option, in my opinion, is to keep the property and refinance and get people as much of their initial investment back as possible, but then have them still own the property.
Oh, they can still stay in.
Yeah. So, and that's not always the case.
Wow.
Some people, some models from the get-go are designed to get people out later in the game so that the equity or the ownership percentage kind of gets eventually sucked back into the general partner.
To whoever starts it, that's the general partner. Okay.
Yeah, to the syndicator. And some people think I'm nuts that I don't want people out. I like people. I like.
You're a team player.
I like sending checks to my friends. Wow. So, and you try to communicate well, and you try to kind of take the temperature of the group, the appetite to to ride it out a little bit longer. But it's either sale or refinance typically.
So just to get an idea of what a syndication could it be like a whole condo association, like you go in and buy out all of the units together?
So it would typically be apartments. So condos can be challenging because you have all different individual unit owners. The most recent one we're doing is one single site with a bunch of units on one property. All of the previous ones were multiple properties, multiple addresses, so a portfolio of properties, but from a singular seller. We, the Hennessy Group, are the property manager. So I think that's attractive to a lot of people, that I am also a partner in the management company. So I really have my finger on the pulse of what's going on
skin in the game.
Operationally. Yeah. So it's like, I'm not waiting for the report from the property manager.
Yeah, you're on
to
it.
then react to something and say, that happened early last month. What was that? Like, I'm in it. I'm in the books almost every day, and in constant contact with our maintenance team and our property managers. I think probably unique. People ask, why I've only done Rhode Island, and it's just a comfort thing for me that I'm in it every day. I'm comfortable with the market.
I feel the same.
I'm comfortable with the people.
Yeah.
I see some potential. I think that maybe some people don't. There's a lot of synergy there that we own the management company also. But yeah, so apartments is what I like. We have some medical in the portfolio, some medical office buildings, but I really try to stick to apartments. We have any commercial spaces we have are attached to apartments. In other words, like street level retail with apartments above it. But for my investment taste, I wish it was all apartments.
I love the medical office buildings, though. I was just literally going through one in Atwood Ave in Johnston. Maybe you own that. Who knows?
No.
But there's like 4 buildings over there, Josh. And I was on the phone with a mutual friend of ours, Greg Rice. And I was like, Greg, we have to start buying these kinds of buildings.
Yeah.
They're full. You can't even get a parking spot.
Yeah.
In America, I hate to say it, I don't know if we're going to really get that much healthier, that much quicker.
Yeah.
I think that there's, again, I hate to say it. I just think that there's medical is needed.
Absolutely.
And office space is needed for medical. And if you can go in and buy that stuff.
Yeah, I love medical. So my preference for multifamily is mainly because I'm comfortable with the management of it, which is what deters people from multifamily, is that it's very difficult to manage because you have a ton of individual tenants with personalities and different reasons for not paying the rent in a certain month. And
entitlements.
So it's very management intensive, where typically medical office building would be way less management intensive.
Triple
and in our experience, that is. Now, but what would keep me up at night is potential vacancy, which I think you do have a good point in that the country's probably not going to get a lot healthier. I hope it does, but there's certainly a need for it. I worry even more about location with medical office than I would necessarily with multifamily. Not that location isn't always important, but it's uber important, I think, with medical office, because I would rather have an apartment building in a sleepy town that I had underwritten conservatively with pretty low rents. And, maybe I only think it's going to be 85% occupied instead of 95, which I would typically underwrite in a good location or a more populated location. I would still rather have that from a predictability standpoint than a office building in a sleepy town, because, with medical office, I'd like to see it near major hospitals. Because, kind of ancillary services to
Cranston,
to
Johnston, Warwick, like those kinds of areas.
Yeah, populated areas. Like you said, parking's huge at those. I think age and condition of the building is pretty big. Most credit tenants, if you're looking for a national tenant or a healthy company, big company that's going to be your triple net tenant, you're putting all your eggs in their basket and that ability for one tenant to pay. So typically they're going to be well heeled. So they're going to look for a nice place. So there's just a little bit, I would analyze it a little bit differently, but if you have a good one with a 7-year lease and a great credit tenant, they're amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Josh Hennessy of the Hennessy Group. Josh, really appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
I admire what you guys are doing out there. And I feel like just from this interaction, and I've known you for a little while, but we never met in person. This was the first time. You're somebody that I feel like I can trust. And I think that is probably one of the best skills that you can have in business when you're because we're dealing with people. And if like right off the rip, like you can trust somebody, like I want to do business with you. So like, I want to get involved in a syndication. Like, so that's huge. I had several takeaways from our interview. I appreciate you really much, and love to have you come back on again sometime.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having
Thanks.
me. That was a
Awesome.
blast.
Good stuff. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back with our second guest. We got Matt Bates jumping on, talking about how to scale a business, how to grow a business. And a lot of it is on reputation and on trust. So we're going to dive deep with him. Stay tuned. I'd like to take a minute and thank Ted Tepuzis, my friend over at Tepuzis and Associates, for sponsoring this program, making this message possible for you to hear. And if you're fortunate enough to live in Florida, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, or Connecticut, you're going to want to leverage the power behind Ted Tepuzis and his team for your real estate transactions. You need a legal team that understands real estate inside and out, and this is what they do, specifically real estate. So go ahead and contact our friends at taclosinglaw.com and let them know where you heard it, right here on The Wealth Architect, Tepuzis and Associates. Season 2, Episode 5 of the Wealth Architect podcast, and this is segment 2. I'm excited to have a good friend of mine and a longstanding colleague, Matt Bates of Movement Mortgage, with us. Now, Matt Bates has built a career off of maintaining and cultivating wealthy relationships. So we're going to talk about that because that is essential when you are building a business, when you're building a brand, when you're building yourself and your community around you. So we're going to dig down deep with that today with Matt. But I want to give him some shout out though, and some kudos, because over the years, he's made it to the top levels of loan production, of loan origination, which is not an easy business to survive in, especially over the past 3 years. So definitely grab a notebook, take some notes. We're going to learn some stuff with Mr. Matt Bates. What's up, Matt?
Not much. Pleasure to be here. Hi, hello, everybody.
Great to have you back on.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Nice setup. And
thank you.
Real proud.
I did it all myself.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, right.
You did.
Shout out to Lucas and the team and Nora and everybody behind the scenes for making it happen. But
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, you look good. Nice suit.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I been looking forward to coming out here, and I've seen a lot of your other videos, and it's an honor to sit in the same seat as a lot of other really mentors, if you will.
Yeah.
People that do a really good job in their space, and a lot of people that we can learn from.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we've interviewed some beasts, like really good people. And you're one of them, Matt. So over the years, you've created a lot of great relationships. You've seen a lot of great relationships. You're a really observant person. And, I know you have a lot to share on this topic. So that's great. I'm glad that we're talking about that today. Let me ask you this, man. What do you think is that number one thing? Like, how some people just attract like wealth to them? What is it? What is it about those people? Like, what is that? What do they got?
We're humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're helping other humans achieve their goals. And it's through that humanity that sets you apart from people that are just focused on the dollar. I gauge my wealth along with, in addition to my assets. It's not eliminating them or not talking about them or my accomplishments, but it's the relationships that I've built along the way, which are crucial. That's the foundation of how I got started. I mean, when we first doing business together, I don't even know if I owned a TV at that time.
Probably not. I don't think I did.
No, right. We were really trying to figure out how to get it done, and it's through that team building and those problem solving skills and those trial and errors and those those difficult days that you lean on the people that support you and that you support to get through it, and really celebrate the great days. As anybody that's been here on this show knows, there's a lot more difficult days than there are easy days, if you will. So I'm a strong believer that wealth is measured not just by a number, but by relationships, and how many strong, great relationships that you have and build and acquire along the way.
I agree with that. I love how you said to be human, right? And when I look at over the years of the type of people that have repelled me and then the type of people that have pulled me in, like, and when you're a leader, right, you have a vision that you need to share, and you need people to grasp that vision and to not only grasp it, but totally believe in it so that they can help you execute it, right? Like, you can't do that if you are not a human first. So that was really wise. I love some great wisdom there, Matt. Tell me about like any interaction that you've had with like somebody that has given you some advice that has like changed your life?
There's some aha moments that I can reflect on. Like, I didn't quite get it. It's very automatic for me to look at things from a calculator point of view, like,
Mm-hmm.
the path of least resistance through processing or underwriting, or the loan that's the easiest to write, or, how much money could you save if you did this versus that. And, from a calculator perspective. But most of my aha moments is when I'm advising or I'm giving my advice, and then I'm not realizing what that path does to the family life's side, the family part of it, the emotional part of it. Somebody that calls me that's in a lot of, difficult debt that they have to deal with. And like the path to least resistance might be to sell the house, use the equity to pay off the debt, and start over from scratch. I mean,
True.
That's a very difficult concept to even come around, if not it's not even an option, because no, I'm not going to sell my house. Where's my family going to live?
Yeah.
Where am I going to go to next? And as a calculator perspective, you can totally see how that's a possibility. But then if you miss that whole emotional part of it that goes into making that decision, then what really help are you? Like, what are you really giving them the advice that they need? One of my learning points is like, no, we're not going to pick that option. And when you hear no, or you see somebody that you're working with somebody you've given advice to, and they don't heed that advice.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why didn't you do what I told you to do? And sometimes people haven't answered that question, and I just left wondering, or like, oh, you made the wrong decision. There's been customers of mine, well, no, I can't do that because of this part of it that you weren't thinking about. And they've educated me on that. And it was like a light bulb went off my head where I can't forget that part of it.
Yeah.
And once I start incorporating that into my advisement or my calculations, if you will, my relationships change with all of my customers. They know that they're not talking to somebody that's just focused on getting a loan done, but they're how to make their lives better.
That's deep.
So a lot of my learning curves are about that. I'm very grateful to those people that let me into the part of their lives, because it helps me do a better job.
Like empathizing and meeting your
100%.
clients where they're at.
We're talking about real life situations, people going through real life, people housing, and it's not just about the calculations. And since then, I know that's made me become a better loan officer. 100%.
I've seen a lot of people in all businesses get tripped up, especially salespeople, right? But mortgage people are some of the worst at this. And then at what I'm about to say, realtors, like just some of us are so bad at it. And at times I have been bad at it too, is listening more than talking, right? Like literally, like God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen twice as much as what we're saying, right? Like, do you find it challenging for a lot of professionals? Have you seen that like over the years?
100%.
And like, at what point, like, was that a challenge for you? It was a challenge for me. Was that a challenge for you? And if so, like, what did you do to change that? How did you recognize that? Like,
I can almost within the first couple of sentences of having a conversation with somebody that's trying to, when the roles are reversed, where I'm the customer and someone else is, trying to advise me on something that they're going to make money if I execute or buy into whatever they're selling, if you will. I hate that word, but I can tell whether they have commission breath or not, and whether they really care about whether or not that's going to be a benefit to me or a benefit to them. I can immediately pick up on it, and that's who I choose to do business with, the people that don't want to help me and not help themselves. Another aha moment that I realized is when I stopped thinking about my paycheck and I start thinking about somebody else, why it's important to somebody else. That's where people, it's almost like an energy that people get attracted to or repel against.
Oh yeah, it's like dating. It's like if you're thirsty and you're out there, and you look at they know, they're like
the second that I didn't make it about me and I made it about who I was helping, is when that part of my life was. I've been very, very thankful to have that supersede what my goals were. Like I surpassed my goals without even thinking about it, because that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on my true reason why I do what I do, and why people in my position do what they do is to use your education to help teach people about what they can and can't do and how to use real estate as a positive influence in their overall life.
So, and that question, right, is like, because you were talking about the human, like basically the human element there and just meeting people at where they're at. Our first guest, Josh Hennessy, was talking about building trust, building rapport, okay? And it's so important. So if you're sitting on the other side of this camera, if you're watching or you're listening, okay, and you're like, shoot, I can't close deals right now. Like, I don't know what is going on. I'm hitting a wall. Well, think about your presentation. Think about how you're showing up. Think about how you're listening. And are you listening? And are you listening twice as much? And are you answering the questions that your clients need to have answered? Or are you just blurting out and giving them your commission breath, your nasty commission breath?
I think it comes through to where answering a customer has a question and you answer it. Okay, that's the rudimentary roles that we play.
Yeah.
Get people the answers that they're asking for. But then are you educating people? Are you teaching
That's
folks?
a big one, man.
Are you teaching people to speak the language that you speak every day?
Yeah.
And are they leaving the conversation more in tune with and more in control of what their destiny is? Or are you leaving them still dependent on you to make the decisions for you? And I'm a strong believer that, all the adults that we do business with, they are adults and they're all highly qualified enough to know the language that I speak. It's just I need to be taught.
Yeah.
Just like I need to be taught how to, when I'm talking to a doctor and what medical, terms mean.
Oh, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Right. It's not that anybody's smarter, any doctor is more smarter than I am or vice versa. That's just, I haven't learned that language yet.
Yeah. I don't know Greek.
If somebody can take the time to teach me, then I can have that fluent conversation and I'm still in control of what my destiny is as a customer or as a person that's seeking this advice. And I teach. I make it a passion to be an educator versus someone that's going to call the shots, because it's not my money, it's not my house, it's not my loan, it's that person's. So they need to be in control.
You
and
give
they need to be taught how to.
You give a damn, man. We've worked together for 10 years, 11 years, something like that, right? And like over the years, right? Like I've always kept with like one or two like lenders at one time, depending on the flow of business, my team, my brokerage that we have coming in, right? And you have been like that consistent lender that I've always worked with personally, professionally, all that stuff, right? And it's because I know I can trust you, and it's because you apply that human element to everything you do. So I think that's fantastic. One thing I want to leave off with, right, is the greatest wealth of all, and that's family. And you and your wife Liz, who is a wonderful person, and you guys, you have a baby and you have like a family, and you are just like doing some amazing things that really like the rest of the world or society is kind of like moving away from. I admire that about you, and I give you a ton of credit. I think you're a great husband, a great father, and like if there's anything you want to share about
That's the proudest thing that I've ever accomplished, and I wouldn't trade all the money in the world for what I have, and I'm real thankful for that.
Yeah.
And shout out to Christian and my wife Elizabeth. Their blessings, and
beautiful
it's
name,
why I
Christian.
get up and do what I do every day.
Yeah. It makes it like kind of like, did you realize like after you guys had Christian, like did your world change?
Yeah.
And how so?
Somebody important to
Mentally.
me. Somebody important to me shared something that the day after Christian was born, it was that now that you have two people in your life that are the most important things in the world, your love for them hasn't been divided, it's been multiplied.
Wow.
And you
like that.
And I was like, wow, you did it. Yeah. You don't know until you're in, it's happened to you, like that. It didn't come full circle until that happened. Yeah. That person's 100% correct that, my love for them has not been divided. It's been multiplied, and share that advice with everybody that goes through the same process and the same life-changing event that I've been through.
Yeah, and those little eyes. I mean, he's so damn cute too. Those little eyes, dude. When they're looking at you, they're watching you, and everything you do, they're accounting for.
My little shadow.
Man, it's just such a wonderful thing, and a humbling thing, and I always say this, like my son Emilio, he taught me more than anyone else in my life.
For sure.
And we learn more from our kids than anything else. And I know there's parents in the room right now that can definitely attest to that. And just such a beautiful thing, man. I
Absolutely.
admire what you're doing. God bless you
God
and your
bless you too.
family, bro. Keep up
Absolutely.
the great work.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for being here with us in the
bet.
Wealth Architect podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and check us out on Spotify or SoundCloud. We love to hear from our listeners as well too. And if you think that you would be perfect for this podcast, feel free to reach out to us on any of those media mediums, and we'll follow up with you. Good stuff. Thank you so much. God bless. We'll see you next time on the Wealth Architect.